All right, first graders. So we're really focusing on jobs that you can do if you are a creator, a designer, an imaginer. Yesterday, we learned that you could be an engineer. An engineer is someone who creates or designs machines or things to solve problems. Like you could design a bridge that would help people cross over some water with a car or with a truck. You could build a bridge that helps really tall boats go under it. You could build a machine like Rosie Revere did to help someone in your family experience flying. That's how the first airplanes were created, by engineers. Today, we're going to read another book from the same series, and it's called Iggy, Peck, Architect. And we're going to find out what is an architect and how do they use their imagination and their designing skills to do something really important. Let's find out what an architect does.
Iggy Peck, Architect, by Andrea Beatty, illustrated by David Roberts.
Same author,
Read
same
by
illustrator.
Miss Jill. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2. When he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. Good.
So far, it seems like maybe being an architect is someone who builds things.
Gracious, Ignatius, his mother exclaimed. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But her smile faded fast as a slight wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean.
Ew!
Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks.
Ew.
But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn using dirt clots to build a great sphinx.
I see him building and designing again. He's building a structure. Maybe that's what architects do. Let's keep reading.
When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples, and temples from modeling clay. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie.
Okay, so now we have evidence from a lot of pages. On every single page, Iggy Peck was building something. And he was building it out of interesting materials. It wasn't just that he was building something. The materials that he used were important, and the way that he built it, the way he designed it, was important. An architect is a person who designs buildings. They decide what buildings are made of, what they look like, and what they do, what kind of job they do. Interesting. They can build buildings, bridges, underground bunkers, anything that things can go on or in. Let's keep reading.
Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade when his teacher, Miss Lilla Greer. On the very first day, she had this to say. Wait
a minute. This is why it's a series. It's all about different kids from the same class, kind of like our class. Each person in their class has a special talent, a special way that their brain works that makes them really good at something. Just like how Rosie Revere was an incredible engineer. And now we're learning about Iggy Peck, the architect.
Not talk of buildings in here.
Oh.
Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new. She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2.
That's not very nice.
That might seem severe, but she was sincere, for when she was no more than 7, she had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's
Mm.
tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group.
Oh.
She was found 2 days later, stuck in an elevator, eating cheese with a French circus troupe. After that day, it's quite safe to say, she thought all building
Okay. That makes a little bit of sense. I was worried that the teacher was being really, really unkind and not being supportive of Iggy Peck. But it sounds like she had a really scary experience. So if that happened to me, I might not like tall buildings or buildings either. But she does need to listen to her students. Let's see what happens next.
lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that, above all, one ought to avoid them. No ifs, ands, or buts. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk.
Wow.
You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howell? No, ma'am, Iggy said. He looked.
Wow. I kind of understand where the teacher is coming from because he was supposed to be listening. But that was an amazing building that he made. He made it out of chalk. I can't believe it. Let's see what happens next.
Lowered his head, and his heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now 2nd grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading and writing and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream. But they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. We're trapped here, oh my! Alas, kids, goodbye! Her eyes rolled back in her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound, luckily fainted, not dead. The class was a...
Wait a minute. Let's rewind. This is exactly the type of thing that architects do. Before there were bridges, these pieces of land did not connect. And there was no way to get to the other side except for swimming, which could be dangerous, or taking a boat. But they don't have a boat. And that's why bridges are so incredible and so important. And that's why architects, being an architect, someone who builds things like a bridge or a building, are so important because they help us make new buildings to do important things like our jobs, like schools, like learning, and they help make bridges so that we can get to places that we couldn't get to before or that we couldn't get to without a boat otherwise, because I don't have a boat. Do you have a boat? No.
The class was amazed. They stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's cue. Soon each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces. And on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces.
Wow.
Boots, tree roots, and string, fruit roll-ups and things, some of which should not mention, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear.
Wow. So they used materials that they found on their shoes, in their pockets, around them to make a bridge. Makes me think about Rosie Revere, how she used things that would have been trash to make her creations, and Tyree Guyton, who took things that would have been trash and turned them into art. Iggy Peck turns things that he finds around and turns them into buildings and structures. He's an architect.
Dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lilla Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Now, every week at Blue River Creek Elementary in 2nd grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker, in a t-shirt and sneakers, talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. And of course, he's the guy who builds towers from pie, that brilliant young man, Iggy Peck. The end. Hey.
Wow. So in this story, Miss Lila Greer, she learned that building and using your imagination to create things is just as important as learning how to read and write and do math. And I think that too. So today, your challenge is to design a building or a bridge. You could either design it and draw your design on a piece of paper and then share it on your flipped grid. Or you could find some trash materials around your house and make it. Try to make a little mini model of what your building would look like, kind of like Iggy Peck, architect, did. Look, he made a building out of apples. He made a building out of paper plates. What else did he make buildings out of? He made some out of, please don't make any buildings out of dirty diapers. Your parents do not want you doing that. But you could use blocks that you have at your house. Maybe you have Legos at your house. Maybe you even just have like some paper cups or plastic cups or regular cups, and you can put them together and see what you can build. I can't wait to see what materials you use and whether you decide to do a design with labels and show us just your design on a piece of paper, or whether you decide to build something with the materials you have at your house. Can't wait to see what you make, and we'll see you tomorrow to learn about another career, another job you could have when you grow up if you are an imaginer, a designer, a creator, which all of you are. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.